Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
In today's episode 136
And something.
Podcast 2 for 1.
Yeah, 100 and a couple more numbers after that. 100 something.
I believe it is episode 136.
Let's just,
look it up.
Yeah.
You know where you guys can look it up? YouTube.com/241 Studios, the best place to consume the content, and actually it is 137.
Indeed,
Today is episode
yeah,
137.
That's right.
So anyway, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on youtube.com/241 Studios. Hit that notification bell. That way you have to on all future episodes of Podcast 241, as well as all the cool content we have at 241 Studios. And don't forget, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. That they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Our sponsor could be changing relatively soon. We'll see, Daniel.
Okay.
We'll see.
We might be branching out. We might be going.
We might be going
cross country.
Cross country.
We're getting national support.
We might get 2 sponsors.
Yeah. we're a 2-state podcast. Our reach is expanding to another state. That's what's happening.
That's very true. That's very true.
We're about
Anyway,
to
Daniel,
double
we are
or triple our subscribers, which will
there. You go.
Crazy. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, we get about 1 subscriber every 2 weeks or so at the moment. So it's
been a ramp up.
Slow but steady, baby. I'm excited about this podcast just because this one kind of snuck up on me. I think I was I think I was at Oklahoma actually whenever I was checking the interwebs. I was like, wait, why are there reviews for Werewolf by Night Out? I'm like, wait a minute. Right. It's out this Friday, and then I woke up and I forgot about it again by the time I had that other realization. I'm like, wait a minute, today's Friday. Werewolf by Night's out. I was like, what do I do with all this extra time I have? So I was like, well, I guess I know exactly what I'm going to do. So I watched it, and it's a solid hour presentation, right? This is under their new Marvel special presentation. And, if you don't know Werewolf by Night, it's kind of like one of those older supernatural characters, like on the lines of Moon Knight, which is where his first appearance was in the comic books. Of course, there's things like Man-Thing and Ghost Rider and Blade. They kind of all fall under these Marvel supernatural banner, like the Midnight Suns, right? And so it's a cool avenue to kind of go branch out into the MCU. And it's a different flavor, right? We saw the trailer at D23. I think this was D23. This one may have been Comic-Con. We saw the trailer for. Can't remember which one it was. Yeah, but we saw the trailer for it. It was in black and white, and it's Michael Giacchino, I believe is his name, and he's the composer for the Batman, which was earlier this year, and a lot of other big properties. It's his first directorial debut, and my general impressions were I really enjoyed it. It's a solid hour of just MCU entertainment. There's not a whole lot I can pick apart that just wasn't, I think they accomplished the things they were trying to accomplish, and it set up some more interesting characters and set up some interesting corners of the MCU that we haven't got yet, some more different flavors of ice cream, so to speak. So before we break down into it more, Daniel, what were your general impressions?
I think like you said, it totally snuck up on me. I think I was logging on Disney Plus to catch up on some She-Hulk, and the banner was Werewolf by Night, and then it just started autoplay. I thought it was an ad at first, and then it started autoplaying, and I was like, wait, what? And I texted you guys. Yeah, so it kind of snuck up on me, and but after watching it, I don't think it's perfect. You know what I mean? I think in some areas of if it's kind of going for that monster movie aesthetic, I thought in some ways it really took advantage of that, and then maybe in some ways it could have taken advantage of that more. But I think you're right in that it's like we're just continuing to get more flavors of ice cream of MCU, and this felt very much its own flavor. And I think It is, once we kind of got to the werewolf, he reminded me. I mean, when he was fighting, and I was like, man, he's kind of just like Beast, right, from X-Men. Like he's very simple, like even just look wise. Obviously he's not blue, or theoretically we've only seen him in black and white, so we don't know. So it was probably not. But yeah, no, I thought it was solid. I thought it took a direction that I didn't expect it to, I guess, with the kind of, at least what appeared to be the A plot, and what kind of ended up being the main plot. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a solid hour. It felt worthy of being kind of a special, and I think it accomplished what a special should accomplish.
Yeah, I think you're right in the fact that it is honoring these Universal Studios monster movies. Wolfman, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, all those kind of things, right? So it has the black and white. It's got even some of the cinematography, like some of the Dutch angles, and some of it's like classical kind of tension and scares, right? It's not like modern day scares where I feel like are much more intense and much more, visceral. But this is kind of like classical, old school. Like it's where a kid could probably watch it and still maybe feel unease, but maybe adults won't get that much out of it in that respect of it. It is definitely the goriest MCU thing we've ever seen. And that really helps being the black and white, right? That you only, it's black, the blood is, we talked about this privately, the blood is probably literally black on set, so it'd come up on camera easier. And so I think that, in that regard, it was fun seeing that, and seeing that they are willing to push the envelope a little bit. And we know that they're going to anyway, because as we all know, Deadpool 3 will be rated R, and it will have Deadpool and Wolverine in it, and all the Berserker rage, and I'm pretty sure they've said for a long time now that it's confirmed rated R. We're not going to change that formula that works so well with Deadpool. So maybe I think part of it with like Blade, for example, we don't really know if it's PG-13 yet. I think that some of the general consensus is that it will be PG-13, but maybe it won't be. We'll see kind of where that goes. But I'll say, let's kind of talk about the story itself real quick. It's only an hour long. It's not a movie. It's like basically one episode of television, but it kind of has a somewhat structure to it. So we know that there's the death of Ulysses Bloodstone, who apparently is like the coven leader of monster hunters, right? A group of monster hunters. And so these monster hunters kind of span different tribes and different sects throughout the world. And it's almost like a competition between them too. Like, they have their job of killing monsters, and also there's like a friendly, almost even like egotistical competition too, of like who can kill the most. And we get Jack Russell, who comes, who's invited also to kind of like pay tribute to Ulysses, but also find out who's the new leader of the coven, right? And Jack Russell is who's our main character, who ends up becoming Werewolf by night, right? Our wolf man, so to speak. And then there's also Elsa Bloodstone, which is Ulysses' daughter, which is basically we're learning through the dialogue and some of the act structure that she is his estranged daughter, and for whatever reason she hasn't done the things that he has wished her to do. Maybe he's not proud of her. We don't really get, I think, all of that story, but we definitely tee up that their relationship is estranged. And yeah, it's just kind of like, it's like a Hunger Games kind of thing, right? Go find this monster that we've captured.
Right.
If you do, you become the leader of the coven. You also get this powerful amulet that will, help you. It'll kind of imbue you with power, it seems like, but also, it kind of represents the leader of the coven too. And so find the monster, kill it, but also you have to, if you run into each other, you're also fair game to kill each other as well. Which I think is a cool premise and a cool setup for a way to introduce, just like vampires, and which we see on the walls, right? We see like vampires are in the MCU. We see werewolves, and we've had like dialogue and stuff like little snippets here and there that the MCU, specifically the phase 4 of like, we know vampires are around, but it seems like they've been around much longer, obviously, right? And I think it's just cool. It's neat. I feel like it feels mysterious enough where it's like, okay, I can see that these groups of people have been operating while Tony Stark was doing his Iron Man thing, and like it's and I believe that, and I think that I'm all down for the supernatural side of the MCU.
Yeah, me too. No, I think I liked the cast of hunters. You know, they were very. I mean, it felt very much almost like we had a Craven the Hunter type, a Blade type, a David Bowie type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was like a nice little smattering of profiles. And yeah, it was interesting that like it's set up as like these are. I mean, in theory, the good guys, right? Like the people hunting down monsters that are killing innocent people.
Right.
But everything about them seems like evil society. I mean, even the fact that like their leader somehow stored his consciousness in a puppet after death, to some degree, or whatever that whole shebang was.
I don't think it's his consciousness. I think it was just like I think he took his body, had it puppeteered, like a what's the word you do with a D or whatever? You have it.
Yeah. See,
he had that, and it's literally like it's literally a voice box. I think that he just recorded. I mean, it's not his conscious. It's totally like a mechanical thing that he is. That's the thing I kind of like about it too. It feels. No, I mean it's just. It's a weird horror, like morbid humor this guy has. You know, like I'm gonna make my dead body puppeteer. You're gonna hear this message. Okay. It's like listening to a recording at the will. You know, that's what it is. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Could I mean, I guess just but in the world that we're given in with the Bloodstone, with how the werewolf and the tree root monster, I guess we get eventually. I guess it doesn't seem unrealistic that somehow he's like reaching beyond the grave to talk to them somehow.
No, but I think there's clues in terms of just like the way they operate the machine, the coffin he's in. Also, just kind of how he depowers down like a machine. Sure. I mean, I think it's a little more clear.
But anyway, they act evil, but in this world that we, at least in theory, like they would be good, right? Like they would be like Blade, in really like people hunting down these, or you're like other people that hunt down specifically Constantine, I guess. But then they're kind of flipped, and then it ends up being the monsters are the good guys, right? Like that's kind of the twist on the narrative that this takes. And I think that I guess I just wasn't expecting that. I was kind of expecting this to maybe connect more to Blade and maybe it will. I mean, like there's a good chance that some of these characters, the ones that survived, could show up somehow or at least be referenced. I assume Elsa Bloodstone is not the last time we've seen her, or the werewolf man, or the tree trunk nose man.
It's a man thing, dude. That's a man thing.
Is it man thing?
That's man thing, man.
Okay, is that like a specific character in the comics?
He's a huge character in the comics.
Okay, that's great. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude. You got the Thing fighting Man Thing. You got the Hulk fighting Man Thing. You got the Man Thing fighting everybody. One of my earliest comic books I have. Well, I say earliest, when I got back into comics when I was 15, 16, is Spider-Man Adventures with Man Thing on the cover. So yeah, but no, I mean, I think a couple things. One, they definitely are positioned as the antagonist of this, but I'm not quite sure. It's one of those things, like it's kind of a gray line, right? Obviously, we're introduced to Jack Russell, and between all of them, he seems the most human, or at least he has this sweetness to him, right? He seems like he's an earnestness to him, and so you have that contradicted with the again, the egotistical and kind of like we're doing this for the greater good, but cultish. Also we might be doing it for more self-interest, cultish kind of thing, right? Yeah. And it's even like acknowledged that he has the most kills out of everybody, and they're like, how did this guy do it? He looks like a normal dude. But he's also interesting, which we'll get. Well, I have a nugget there. I'll just say,
yeah.
But I think it is kind of fair to say, like, look, they've been like destroying all these monsters, right? And it's like this. I think part of it is kind of like, look, it's a message of not all. It's like, okay, we've decided that the monsters, all of them are bad, right? Probably for good reason. I mean, there's probably. Typically, you don't want werewolves, and you don't want vampires running around. And typically, in most mediums we've ever seen, books, TV, whatever, right? Yes. But there's a message here that's saying, like, look, even amongst all the bad apples, not all of them are bad. And and they become villainized because of their thinking of that, right? And part of it too is, I think her name is Verusa, which is Ulysses' wife, which is Elsa's stepmother. She's also obviously someone who is kind of bending the rules a little bit, someone who is enjoying this brief moment of power where she gets to bestow the Bloodstone to somebody else, and it almost implies that she might want to keep it for herself, even if someone else is earned it. Kind of. I mean, like there's a hint of that there, right?
Yeah.
And so I think like obviously they're the villains because they want to kill Jack, who we've come to probably like or appreciate in some way across the journey, and we're also kind of rooting for Elsa because it seems like she's been slighted for some reason against the family, even though she seems like she's there for good intentions as well. And so I think like it's more a gray area. Obviously, too, you see your friend killed by vampires and werewolves, your friends and family and other people your whole life, and you say, hey, this werewolf is going to come out. I mean, it's probably a good reason to want to take him out, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, too, is that Jack also is very aware that it's a bad thing. It's a curse. I mean, he says this has only worked one time when he's like looked into someone's eyes and like basically done the scent thing and with Elsa. So it's implied that he has lost control more than he's been in control, and he's probably hurt people shouldn't have been hurt. But also it kind of begs you to wonder, well, how did he kill more people than everybody else? You know.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird. Like, how do they confirm kill counts? And was he killing monsters as a werewolf, or because he seemed to indicate he has like no control or had no memory even, or like it's kind of this complete other person. But that is interesting. Yeah, I think it is like I agree. It is kind of the story about like people that who we assume are the monsters are not actually that monstrous, and who we assume are the good guys are not actually that good. I think that's fine. I think I was a little bit hoping it was a little bit more like straight up like scary monsters kind of thing. In the end, the humans are the real monsters, and I think that's like we've gotten that a lot. I mean, I think that's even kind of like that's like the story of Hulk in some way. Like that's his whole like a theme of him is that like he looks like this murderous monster movie creature, but he's actually the good guy, and the humans that chase him are the monsters or whatever. I don't know. I just think there was a chance to do something a little bit more, and to the point of it, I think that does become even darker than what we got. I think we got this thing that it was dark in terms of like, yes, it was gory, but it also had this kind of silliness to everything, like this touch of like it didn't take itself too seriously kind of thing, and I think that works. I think if it was me, and this probably also comes because we've been speculating about this since it was announced, and especially since we got Black Knight in Eternals. And I know we speculate, will it be Blade? Will it be Black Knight? Will it be them actually hunting monsters? Will it be like a real scary Halloween special? And it wasn't. And I think that's it. I think what you said is right, that it is everything it wants to be. And that's and it works as that. I think if it was just, if I had the total creative control, I might have taken it in like let's see what the MCU looks like when it's actually trying to be scary, or like or like I guess I don't mind the monster being the monster sometimes, and that there's some horror to that I was kind of looking forward to, but it's okay that it wasn't. But
yeah, I mean, I think also the only downside of that problem is that it's called Werewolf by Night, and if you know anything about that character, or just a quick Google search, you know that he's a hero. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Like it's like we know I knew going in Werewolf by Night's a good guy. I know he's a guy who's cursed, like all these other Marvel superheroes are all cursed with power, right? But
gotcha.
The humanity is what makes them different. But I agree with you in the fact that it played it a little safe compared to what we typically would think of as a horror movie. But also I do, it is on Disney Plus, and also the big thing is, I think we have gotten a little bit of that with like Doctor Strange 2 with Sam Raimi. Right. There's definitely some horror elements in there. It's almost more visceral, like when Scarlet Witch is snapping necks and stuff.
Oh, it is,
and
100%. I mean, that's more of a horror experience.
And blowing heads up. So I do wonder what if Sam Raimi directed this.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Be a lot more bloody.
Probably, yeah. If you've seen any of the Evil Dead movies, then, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, honestly, Doctor Strange 2 is just Evil Dead 5. That's really what it is.
Exactly.
It looks like there's a Book of the Dead, and there's it looks exactly like Evil Dead. But I think that we also have to remember what this is, and it's a Marvel special presentation, and it's an hour long, and it's supposed to wet the beak a little bit. It's supposed to be like, hey, here's a part of the universe that you didn't know existed, and we hope you're interested in what we have to tell in the future. And I'm like, you know what? This is a fun part. I like vampire hunters. I like werewolves, and I like Blade, and I like the Black Knight, and I like Ghost Rider and Moon Knight. And I'm like, yes, bring me more of this, and kind of test the waters, and then keep pushing those boundaries. And we just found out that Blade yesterday. That Blade got pushed back, right? A good 7-8 months. Lost his director, and so it feels like
reports that Mahershala Ali has been pretty frustrated, which who knows? I mean, like that
with the process,
yeah.
I mean,
if they lost him, that would be oof.
It would be
a major blow.
It would be, but I don't think they will. But I think part of it too is that he was announced in 2019, I believe, as his character, and it's already been, or maybe 2018. It's been I think it's 2018. No, 19. 4 years, 3 years, and so I think he's seeing the Marvel machine at its worst in terms of expediency and date changes and reshoots and and how it looks like scripts aren't written before the movie starts, which is, we feel like we're getting that a lot now. I bet that might have been one that were like, hey, we need a script written before we start shooting because of Mahershala Ali.
We've got an Academy Award-winning actor, and he's not going to be cool with just this throwing everything together last second thing.
I kind of feel like if it was not him, they would not have pushed it back. I feel like they would have probably kind of kept going and rewrote it as they were going. I just have a feeling.
Maybe so. Yeah, I can imagine him just even it must be more difficult sometimes to work as an actor. You can't memorize your lines if they're still rewriting things right before you do it, or whatever. So it's just it becomes a lot more. You have to do a lot more work in the moment. You can't do as much prep work or whatever. And I would imagine that Mahershala, as an Academy Award-winning actor, takes his craft very seriously, and he's going to want to feel like this is a place where he can act, and he has the ability to put his craft to work. And if things are flying last second and coming together last second, I'm sure that's more difficult to produce quality work in that kind of environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he's probably. I think there's 1,000 actors out there that are amazing that probably you can hand them a line and they're good on the day. I think that happens probably a lot more in Hollywood than we even talk about or think about, right? Especially when you're ad-libbing, comedy, all that kind of stuff. But I think you're right in the fact that it probably is a different process for him that he's used to. And, when you announce something 3 or 4 years ago, you're not getting any younger, and you want to get done.
And I will say, Mahershala Ali has established himself as an actor's actor. He takes these he likes to take roles where he picks the roles, it seems, pretty selectively. He doesn't just take everything, right? But I do think this Blade role,
Maybe.
I don't know, just you look at his IMDb credits,
he won
just very,
I guess. The Green Book and Moonlight are 2 big acting things, but he was in Luke Cage season 1 in 2018 or 19.
sure.
I don't know. Maybe.
I would say his stock is high in
it was high 3 years ago.
But I would say it's high in terms of if you casted him in with a good director, you could expect awards, right? It's not high in terms of pop culture. I don't see Mahershala. He's not as big with the kids, right? He's bigger with adults.
No,
it feels like now.
You're right. You're right.
He's been in these adult movies roles, and I feel like Blade is his chance to become a Robert Downey Jr. or a Chris Evans, right? Become a pop culture icon. Even Black Panther. So I think this could still. Obviously, I know we kind of look at Mahershala Ali as being wow, we can't believe they got him, kind of thing.
Sure.
But I do think he probably sees this as a big opportunity to this could cement his career in a different way for the rest of his life. If it goes right.
Moonlight probably didn't pay for his grandkids' college tuition, but
Exactly.
but Blade will. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Moon Knight may have paid for. I mean, it did in the ways that it got him more roles, and he's kind of award-winning actor. Of
course.
Or maybe it was the Green Book. I can't remember. I think maybe Moonlight just won Best Picture, and then he won the Academy Award for Green Book. I don't
Can't remember. Yep.
I don't remember, but obviously it did a lot for him. But I'm saying that's not the same as like the money part of it. You know, Blade he's gonna have residuals for the rest of his life, and points and back ends and everything else. I mean, it's gonna be totally different.
He's gonna have action figures with his face on it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's again if you're smart, your grandchildren's children will have everything paid for.
Right.
So yeah, I think you're right in that way, but. I mean, just to kind of tie it back together, I'm excited for this part of the MCU. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine fuck the Thunderbolts. Can you imagine like a Midnight Suns movie with Ghost Rider, Moon Knight, Blade, and then Werewolf by Night? That's a sweet sounding movie right there.
It is, yeah. I mean, and I think you're right that it does introduce more elements that we expect to see later, right? Like, it would seem like impossible for Werewolf Night not to be mentioned or show up in Blade and Black Knight. Is he confirmed to be in Blade, or are we just still speculating that?
It's speculation.
Okay, but like whenever sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say but here's another thing too that I think that separates these guys from the rest of the pack. Every single one of these characters, it's like the power. And I said earlier, it's a curse. Like Werewolf by Night, he can't control that. Moon Knight, it's Khonshu, and especially with Jake Lockley as the third persona, he can't control that.
Yeah.
Blade, he's a vampire that his weakness is that he ends up thirst for blood, and he can't control that part of him. Sometimes it's his disadvantage. The Black Knight, it's a cursed sword, and he can't. He basically sees red, and he can't control. Like it's like the thing. Same thing with Ghost Rider. It's a spirit of vengeance. At certain points, the spirit takes over, and he can't control that. You know what I'm saying? It's not like Captain America or Iron Man where they're learning a lesson and they're one and the same. It's these new characters are split down the middle. You know, they're different personalities.
Yeah, and I think that's really what makes them interesting or unique, and why you can do different things with them than you can do with other characters. And I think. You know, that is interesting. They're all just basically were normal people that were either cursed. I mean, I'm guessing Werewolf by Night, was he bit by a werewolf? Is that his origin story?
Sure, I'm sure.
I'm sure he did something supernatural, cross paths with something. But yeah, that is interesting that they're born normal people, but then cursed by something that is supernatural in some way, whether spiritual or monster level. And I'm very excited to see this side of the universe. I was probably one of the I don't know. I enjoyed the Ghost Rider movies with Nick Cage in my youth, and I'm excited to see that character return. And who knows who else we'll get? But yeah, I'm very excited for the supernatural side of the MCU.
One of my favorite things in comics, like in terms of this sect of the universe, is a thing called it was a comic arc called Circle of Four, and it was kind of small and short, but it had Ghost Rider, it had Agent Venom, which was Flash Thompson and Venom, it had Red Hulk, and then it had X-23, which is we saw her in Logan. You know, in that version, it's what's his daughter, I guess, in that version, right? And so I think you have the potential to kind of do that kind of thing again. You can make these really cool team ups, and then what you do is I don't see them not doing something like that before Secret Wars happens. Maybe it'll be a TV thing because but like you have like the Midnight, we'll call them the Midnight Suns or the Circle of Four. Then you have the Thunderbolts, which is like the government having their own Avengers, and then you have the Avengers, whatever that means in Kang Dynasty. And then you have the Avengers Secret Wars, and I could see kind of like Infinity War where we had the Cap team and Iron Man team, and then we also have Thor and the Guardians, right? Those three sects. I could see Kang Dynasty maybe being like the Thunderbolts, the Avengers, and maybe like the supernatural side of the MCU. Like those three sections kind of operating independently, and then Secret Wars happens, and they all have to work together to defeat whatever happens.
I could see the supernatural side of the MCU being kind of part of the key to them winning against Kang, because Kang is kind of this cosmic being that seems to like operate. I mean, he is kind of a god in his, like how he exists outside of
all
things.
intents
But,
and
like,
purposes.
yeah, but like I feel like I feel like you're right. Like when you do these kinds of stories, it also just gives you to do a story with different kinds of stakes. You can still do big stakes, but it doesn't have to be the world is going to explode or all of life will be snapped or whatever. It can be more like subtle, but like I don't know. Fuck. I mean, like some evil spirit's going to possess certain people, or like just kind of more like it's unseen consequences but are important to these characters, I guess.
It could be as simple as a young girl being possessed by a demon, and the stakes are this one young girl, and they have to defeat like maybe a coven of people to save one girl.
Perfect, exactly.
And that's an amazing idea or story that like can get you it can get the audience where they need to go to feel satisfied with a character's arc. And like the emotional satisfaction of of stakes, like it's stakes or whatever you deem them to be, like again, and they're smart to do. I mean, these Disney Plus shows, I think part of the issue, maybe my idea with some of them is that some of them kind of feel like the stakes are too big for the for the episode count or whatever. Like,
or just
Falcon Winter Soldier
every stake is worldwide. Like destruction, even in a show that's supposed to be down to earth like Miss Marvel, it feels like it's worldwide. Yeah, exactly.
It's worldwide. She-Hulk is a little more personal, I think, so far. In terms of I don't see it. I don't see it seeping out yet to end the world destruction. Falcon Winter Soldier, it was kind of worldwide in terms of like terrorists and like
it was.
I think some type of chemical. They should have brought that down to just trying to save the ideology of just
which I guess
characters and
to give it credit, it wasn't like the world was going to end, but like it was like the world was going to get worse. How they were treating each other.
Yeah, right? And it should have been smaller. It should have been smaller.
It should have been even smaller than that. You're right. But I mean, like Moon Knight, to its credit, I mean, it's still a world-ending threat. Some like Egyptian god coming to Earth to enslave everyone.
It is. Eternals was definitely world-ending. It was literally world-ending.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think you're right in that, like, we need other kinds of stakes, and that has been a problem with Marvel pretty much a lot of the time, the whole time in some ways. Yeah.
It's hard to do whenever you open that pane. Part of it is you want your movies to feel bigger than the last one. But the thing is, it's not always about being bigger in scale. It's about being bigger in emotion.
Exactly.
And like
exactly.
Like, I mean, Spider-Man: No Way Home ended up being about if we don't do this particular thing, then the whole multiverse could collapse on itself. But it would have been okay if it was just about him losing Aunt May and dealing with now these characters that were inside his world. I think you could have took away the multiverse thing. Especially now that didn't really tee up anything at the moment beyond. It didn't affect Doctor Strange 2 like we thought or anything. So that really could have been taken out. It still works, don't get me wrong. That gets a pass. But I think, also a rumor going around now in the last 24 hours that Spider-Man, now that they're shifting these dates around, of course, it's 2022. Avengers: Secret Wars happens in 2026. There's no way that they're not doing a Spider-Man 4 in the next 4 years before Secret Wars happens. There's just no fucking way. Too much money. There's
probably like obligations to use.
Well, it's Sony. I mean, like they don't have to abide by Marvel's thing. They're making the Madam Web movie. We know Venom 3 is currently being written. Morbius is still writing. It's Morbin Time High. And then
wait, what? They're making a sequel to Morbius?
No, I was just saying it's writing the Morbin Time High.
Okay.
But it's not. But but the big thing is that Sony's going to Sony, right? Just like Nintendo's going to Nintendo. And so I think the rumor going now is Spider-Man 4 will be potentially dealing with the after effects of Daredevil Born Again, and Daredevil will be in Spider-Man 4. And that potentially the symbiote could be involved, but it'll be street level stakes. It won't be world ending. It'll be Spider-Man dealing with Peter Parker problems, which is what I've always wanted.
He should just deal with the symbiote. I mean, they should just do Venom and do it right. Just that's a right.
Well, the rumor partly the rumor is there's. I mean, obviously, who knows, right? We're too early. No one's written anything that we know of. Part of it is like some say that the symbiote won't be in this movie and it'll be saved for like a Secret Wars, which is what happened in the comics. He'll get it during Secret Wars. I think it's
he got the symbiote during Secret Wars in the comics for the first time.
That's how he gets it. That's how he gets in the comics. Yes, he goes. Yeah, during Secret Wars, his costume gets destroyed, and he finds the black goo at a facility, and it gets on him, and that's how he gets it. It's in
So
Secret
the plot,
Wars. I got the issue
plot
number
with
7.
it coming home on J. Jonah Jameson's son, the astronaut, like that was just for the. Was that ever a real plot? I mean, I know that was in the TV show in the 90s.
That's in the
and that was
cartoon,
also
yes.
in the movie, right? Like that's what they ended up doing.
Well, in the movie, it just comes off an asteroid.
Right. But it still comes from space, kind of thing. Just kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but no, in the comics, he gets it from the facility.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's how he gets it. And that's the famous cover, issue number 7 of Secret Wars, and he's the black suit. I've got it, but it's and then he comes back from that, and
with
he's
it
got
on,
the black suit on. Yeah, with it on, back to the Earth.
That's interesting if they do that. It would almost make the fact that like Eddie Brock left a piece behind weird if that ends up being the way they did it.
I agree. That's why I don't think it's going to happen. I think that he could, I don't know. It's kind of weird to not do it in Spider-Man 4. If I don't know. I feel like I feel like he's going to wear it in Secret Wars. I feel like because they're going to kind of do that homage. They might not, but I feel like he's going to wear. I don't know. I feel like he's going to wear it in Spider-Man 4.
Well,
and maybe Secret Wars is
Carnage is like an infant of Venom, right?
He's Venom spawn, yes. Which we've got to keep in mind though. We've done Venom and we've done Carnage now, like relatively recently.
Universe, maybe.
Hey, don't get me wrong. I would like cream the computer right now if I found out if they were doing Venom and Carnage in any way remotely how I want them to be done. Carnage is pretty accurate to what he was in the movie, but it's just not. It's not what you want when you got.
No.
It's just not what I wanted. I don't think anybody really wants it, but they really ask themselves the serious questions. What you want is you want Spider-Man to get the black suit. You want Venom to become born from that. Then you want Venom to give him hell. And then you want Spider-Man and Venom to fight Carnage together. That's what you want. And they've kind of wasted that a little bit. So, and then you want fucking Flash Thompson to get the Venom suit. That's what you want. And so, at the moment, I don't know what they're going to do. I thought it was super weird and interesting that they left the symbiote in. Yeah. Like, he dropped that piece off. And it's like, again, that's why I think he's just going to get the next movie, because if they were waiting for the Secret Wars thing, like, they could just said it was a different symbiote out in the... it's weird that they did it the way they did it. So.
Yeah, it almost feels like you hope it wasn't... You hope that wasn't a kind of a short-sighted, like, thing.
I'm afraid it was.
Of like, we'll just leave the door open for the future, or kind of like, I mean, I would hope that they've planned it out more specifically than that, I don't know, the 10-year plan or whatever. But yeah, it is interesting. I mean, that to me, like the Venom plot is like the obvious one on the table for the MCU with Spider-Man, and the one that I feel like probably a lot of people want them to do, even though we've gotten it in several versions already, just because it's never come in a very satisfying form.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I mean, it's like Sony obviously has found success with Tom Hardy's Venom, whether I don't like it or not. I mean, it's made a lot of money,
and
it's made a lot of money. And fucking Venom 2 is, critically better than the first one, which is almost like wild to me. And
It's like those movies are made for people that don't drink water. They only drink energy drinks, Monster energy drinks. You know what I mean? Like that's perfect. Yeah, that's like the feeling I get from them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I think that the big thing to me is like, it's really strange to me to see that Sony is willing to give Marvel the symbiote, but not have Tom Holland as Spider. I would give anything to be in those conversations with Amy Pascal, because I bet it's like Amy Pascal pitching shit, and Kevin Feige's like trying to like. It's almost like Dr. Octopus trying to make the rays go back into like the thing. Like he's like catching it, let's put it back into the box. And then he's like, well, what if we did this? And it's like secretly kind of benefiting him later. Like he's like
trying to
kid into like eating their vegetables. It's like
it's like when you're like trying to like gently tell someone that all their ideas are dumb, but you like need to like keep this relationship, so you're trying to do it in this way of like. You don't want to like just say you have no idea what you're talking about. That like what but you have to be like, well, that's interesting. That's something we can talk about. Yeah, we should workshop that. Like these kinds of things. Like like that's, I don't know.
Well, I kind of hope that I just remember that Kraven the Hunter's thing. I'm kind of hoping that the downfall of Morbius, which is not any way, shape, or form a mark of success. I'm hoping that like every time that happens, I don't want movies to fail, but every time that happens, like it helps Kevin Feige and his negotiating power. So Kraven the Hunter's the next one, and I'm really curious to see what happens there. Because I don't know. I
agree. I get what you're saying. You never want a movie to fail, but like I am also kind of bored of like Sony's let's make a villain universe antics. And it's very boring to me and uninteresting to me. And what it does is it feels like it threatens the good stuff that's going on in comic movie universe stuff. And so I am kind of with you. I'm like, well, I mean, if Kraven does a Morbius instead of a Venom, then they're probably having to rethink their strategy, and maybe that's a good thing for what can happen in the future of the MCU.
My question is, when this thing coming out? October 6th, 2023. So it was Venom's 2's position last year is where it came out. So this time next year, literally, we'll have watched it a week by now. This time next year.
Okay.
And the thing is, they're also shooting the Madam Web movie, which has implications for Spider-Verse kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
well, isn't there rumors that that's going to connect to Into the Spider-Verse even potentially, or like
I haven't heard that particularly, but it wouldn't surprise me. It feels like the part two and 3 of Spider-Verse cartoon. I feel like that it seems like that's going to like they're doing it to end it, right? Like that's going to be the end of that trilogy. But there's money involved, so I'm just like I don't see.
And I guess like I don't know why Sony isn't thinking like, well, let's let MCU have Peter Parker. Let's get Miles Morales. Let's just be the other comic line to like how the comics work. Like that.
Well, I think Marvel's
like
wanting that.
Yeah, but Sony would Sony not have the power? I mean, here's the question: does Sony only own Peter Parker? Or do they own all the Spider-Man personas? Or
every time like a new character is made, like under the Marvel Comics banner that's like associated with Spider-Man, Sony gets the rights to it.
Wow, damn, they've got a great hold on that IP then.
Yeah, it's just kind of part of it. It's kind of like yeah, exactly. Like one of the newer villains.
But you get in like
Kindred.
perpetuity anything that's added on to that IP from a totally different owner and like source.
Which they deny this, medium. But 3 or 4 years ago, X-Men was going to really get in the shaft in the comics because also every time they devote more time and energy to creating more characters and more storylines and more comic books, Fox was getting the storylines for that. So like Fox Studios was getting the storylines from Marvel Comics, but now that I say 4, maybe it was like 6 years ago or 7, but then when Disney absorbed Fox, X-Men started becoming more of a forefront again. And then Fantastic Four is the big culprit here. Like whenever that last movie was coming out, like Fantastic Four like went away completely. And then when the Disney merger happened, obviously part of it is like synergy with like your IPs, but also it's like why are we going to devote resources to characters that we don't have control over in other mediums?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Spider-Man's too big where you can't do that. So they they have to keep it's the number 1 comic, so they have to keep doing new stories.
Business.
Of that particular part of the business, yes, but and again, Disney makes more money off the merchandising for Spider-Man than Sony does for the movies. You know what I'm saying? So like, and Spider-Man's like, if you look at the graph, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, the top 3 selling toys. Spider-Man does like 7 to 20 more times than Batman, which is number 2 spot. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they don't. Anyway, it's more logistics. But Werewolf by Night,
and an in-depth discussion of Marvel and Sony IP management. Yeah, no, I mean I think but that's the thing. I think that kind of speaks to Werewolves by Night. I think like. It was good, and I think like I'm happy with what it was, but I am almost more excited for what potentially it could lead to, and like how, where do these characters show up later? How does this, because we're asking every time we get new content, how does this evolve the IP, right?
That's Phase 4 in a nutshell, Daniel. This is interesting, kind of, but I'm more excited about where this goes.
You're right. You're absolutely right. That's. frustrating and kind of like you hope that changes, right, kind of thing. But like, it is very much in line. You're right. It's consistent. It's consistent. Other than Spider-Man: No Way Home, that was the only one where I could just watch that movie. I just wanted to stay in that story forever.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like
That-
every
that's
other
the
story, I'm
exception.
like, this is fine, but can we get past this to what comes after, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Thor, Doctor Strange, Black Widow, all those other ones. It feels
Eternals.
like- I mean, Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi is an exception. I would say I enjoyed
It's an
being in that
exception.
world a bit more.
I did too, but it still doesn't have it. I don't know. That one's a
It's
little,
not. It's not. It's better than the rest of them, but it's not exactly what I want yet. Still,
This is why
you know what I
Winter
mean?
Soldier is like considered to me probably still the best one because it's all about
Yes.
Cap's journey,
Yes.
but it has such a big implication for the wider MCU at the same time.
and it concludes. It's kind of like it feels very conclusive at the end.
It feels
like
conclusive.
okay, this is a satisfying thing. I don't feel like there's just threads trying to dangle me into the next movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's just like the tension and just the action is
Sure.
so amazing. The espionage element to it is just amazing. It's just an amazing espionage spy movie, essentially. Like,
Yeah. That's kind of why Iron Man 2, I still love it, but people are not as warm to it because it feels like his arc isn't as strong as the first movie, which it's not.
agreed.
And then it's literally like you have to figure out the key to your heart, with your, and like it's really weak. And then the big thing is, there's a lot of little threads that's being planted for the wider MCU, but it feels like it's things that we could have done in the next movie or in the Avengers movie that didn't need to be here, but they were here because Kevin Feige. It worked out eventually, right? With Avengers, but still, it feels kind of like that sometimes with
Yeah, and I'll say, Werewolf by Night, I'm more satisfied by it than Eternals, and then more than Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, my expectations were lower. That's why, because I had just much higher expectations for those movies, and so. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we're still waiting for the MCU to get back in their stride. You know what I mean?
Real quick, last thing I want to do with you. I agree with you, but is Werewolf by Night better than Hawkeye? No, it's different because there's episodes versus this one experience, but overall, are you more satisfied?
I kind of put them on par, actually. They kind of are what they wanted to be.
What about Miss Marvel?
I prefer Werewolf by Night.
Fuck yeah. What about She-Hulk so far?
It's not fair because She-Hulk has Daredevil, and that alone pushes it to a level that is feels a little like I have a sentimental liking of it that I feel like isn't very fair in terms of everything else about the show.
And we'll talk more later this
And I
week
haven't seen
about
the
She-Hulk.
finale, and I'll give that to you. I haven't seen the
What
finale.
about WandaVision? Definitely probably WandaVision. Probably
WandaVision.
emotionally. What about Falcon Winter Soldier?
Oh, that's difficult.
As I'm going through this list myself, I think the big culprit every time after I'm listening to what I say to you and then listen to your response, my answer is always, well, Werewolf by Night did less damage than Hawkeye. It did less damage than Miss Marvel. MCU damage. Right now, Werewolf by Night doesn't do anything to me that harms the MCU as a whole at all.
No,
it does
doesn't.
nothing. But Miss Marvel did do things that damage the property for me. It damaged the universe.
Yeah.
She-Hulk, I am liking She-Hulk. I've got problems with it.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I think it is damaging the universe. I think
It
having
in a
leapfrog and all these
tone way. Yes, it's making the
not even tone way, but just you're opening up more Pandora's box of all these rando superheroes. It feels like it's getting too unruly for me. It feels like it's getting too I could have answered every single superhero name ever 10 years ago. But now we're getting throw off characters and fucking therapy sessions with boars and the universe does not feel. I don't know what the universe is right now at all. When you see Eternals and you see Dane Whitman, when you see it makes sense when this not the Celestials, but I think I can't remember what these guys are called. The bad guys in Eternals. whenever they show up, it feels like the world that Dane Whitman and the Eternals are pretending to live in is not. It's not the same place that She-Hulk is living in.
No,
She-Hulk feels like
No.
everything's everywhere. Dane Whitman
Yes.
feels like he's like, what the fuck? Like, I know about Iron Man and a few of these others, but like, it's wild.
Right.
It's totally different. You know.
Completely agree. I think you're right in a tone sense. Yeah, I mean, going back to like the Falcon Winter Soldier thing, it is like it's a thing of like I don't think that damaged it in terms of tone. I actually think the highs of that show are much higher than like a lot. I mean, I think
Sure.
I mean, honestly, for me, the high of that show is the John Walker plot line. I think that's the best part of that show, and even specifically, I mean, like, huh?
And Isaiah
Bradley, yes. But like even specifically the episode where he bloodies the Captain America shield is like that image is like burned into my mind. That was like a really, really
Sure.
cool moment that I'm not sure any of the shows have topped the coolness factor of that, like the badassness of that moment. Like even WandaVision, like it was a great show, but like the climaxes weren't where it hit its stride. It was in the build-up that WandaVision was like magic. I think you're right that Werewolf by Night, it doesn't damage the universe. It's it's kind of this weird thing where it's like I'm liking it better because of how, so in some ways of its unremarkableness. It doesn't do anything to damage it, but it doesn't do anything to like. It doesn't do anything remarkable either, right? It doesn't do any. It doesn't have any. There's not really any moments that I'm going to remember in the show. Like the one thing probably, and this is more of like a technical thing.
I did
is like,
love
the long shot of like when he's the werewolf and he's like beating people
Sure.
up and the doors closing slowly. That was really pretty, and I thought like staged was well. Like cinematography looked really good and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of like universe moments, there wasn't anything like that happened that made me like, oh shit, this is a big deal. Or like this is like a memory for me, and this is a, we'll remember this in the timeline of the MCU kind of thing.
I agree. I real quick, I do love when one Man Thing grabs her and throws her into the coffin.
That
and
is
like,
cool.
it explodes both. That was fucking sick as shit. But that was cool.
Is that Man
But
Thing's powers? He like touches people and they burn up into fire.
I don't really know. I'm not a huge Man Thing guy.
Yeah.
But I think though, here's the thing that I think compliment to Werewolf by Night. I could see that being in phase 1, 2, or 3. You know what I'm saying? It's not. It feels contained enough, and it doesn't affect that many things. But like again, it's not damaging. What I'm really hoping, a couple things. There's rumors that, and we don't know this, but there's rumors that Disney Plus and Kevin Feige specifically are going to start doing these more special presentations instead of these longer form television things because they can control it better. There's less episode counts. There's more eyes on it, and they can kind of it might be more well received. And so, because the start of the streaming service, they got a lot of reviewers, and it's always a content game. But and it does feel like we're constantly getting like just a couple week break before we get new episodes of something. I feel like there's almost
every
enough
2
content
weeks.
now.
There's like a 2 or 3 week break, and then we either get Star Wars or Marvel. That's been the pattern of the last couple of years.
It is, but they've got enough subscribers now where they can pull back if they want to and save some money and also just kind of do some quality control, especially if Star Wars is ramping up in other ways. Because the good thing about streaming service is that you don't lose those things that you make; they're on there forever. If there's they're on there forever.
Yep.
So I think that, and I'm really hoping that going into phase 5 and phase 6, that we really start seeing the criticism taken to heart. And also, I don't like leaning on this because I feel like, I don't know, but we were in a pandemic, and so they were affected in a lot of ways through this.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that the things coming out in the next year or two, those things will be,
I agree. I think we're still in the range of like the stuff that's coming out now was still affected by the pandemic. Either how they shot it or when they shot it, how fast the production was, whatever. I think the stuff that is shooting now, the stuff that is in production now, when that stuff comes out, that'll be kind of the first stuff that hopefully feels post-pandemic kind of entertainment.
This one right here was shot, I believe, early this year. Like it was shot not that long ago.
Okay,
Had a quick turnaround time.
And you know what? I do think. I mean, this one felt like. I mean, as far as sets, they did a lot of production design. On there's a lot of practice. I mean, the whole thing felt pretty practical. And I assume it. I mean, maybe it was just really good green screen, but I assume it was pretty practical. And in the way that, like, you're right. This show never felt like it was trying to cut corners for what it was trying to be.
No.
Right?
Not at all.
It never felt like, why is there only like this many people on screen, or like, these feelings that you can get from pandemic shows where there's 2 characters on screen 90% of the show, or just these kinds of things that you can tell there's a difference, but it sometimes takes like some analysis to really see what's going on. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for, I guess what is the next big Marvel show that will come out.
Movie wise, we have Black Panther 2 in just a few short weeks.
Now that was a pandemic movie that was made during at least the tail end of the pandemic.
Yes.
Because a lot of the stories from that were pandemic related in terms of some of the drama on set.
Yes, it was. I think the next big show is Secret Invasion. Of course,
And
at the same time
now, right?
They may have been. I think they're done with that one.
Okay.
But officially done. But they have Secret Invasion. We know that we're getting Ant-Man 3 in February-ish, March, and we also have Loki season 2 happening after Ant-Man 3. Which also, I'm really curious about that one because Loki was clearly a pandemic show.
And that one started filming recently, Loki 2, or finished recently. One of the two.
It started in May, I think.
So that one should be that one should feel different, because I agree. Loki was one that felt like there's only ever 2 people on screen. There's only ever 2 people in a room together, kind of thing, which feels very COVID safe. So Loki will be an interesting one to see. But yeah, I'm like, we're still we're kind of in society, like, it feels the least pandemic-y it's felt since it began. You know what I mean? Like, just in terms of like how it's impacting our lives and how it's on the news and stuff. And so, but we're still probably a year or 2 away from all of the entertainment and kind of like content feeling free of those COVID restrictions. And I think it's fair to say that COVID, to a degree, hurt a lot of creative content. Like I'm
sure it did. Yeah, absolutely.
Varying degrees. Some more than others, but.
Well, I also take it as a sign too that, like, Armor Wars, for example, is now being turned into a movie. And it's kind of like, good. You're sitting there going, like, Falcon Winter Soldier should have been
a movie,
100%. It would have been 100%. It was like destined for a movie, and it would have been a good movie too. It would have been a really good movie.
Really
if they had really trimmed all the shit that wasn't. It just had its good parts. 2 hours. It would have been a pretty solid movie.
Would have been amazing,
It would have been, and so like in WandaVision, it particularly lent itself to the format.
That is still the only show that felt like this would have been worse as a movie. You know what I mean?
You couldn't have done that show as it is now as a movie at all.
Yes, exactly.
It's literally built upon the format.
Everything else feels like, and we've talked about this, everything else feels like they're trying to just stretch a movie into TV shows and not like trying to approach it as a TV show. Right.
I agree. Well, Daniel, how can our listeners write into us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/2for1mail. Let us know what you think of any part of the MCU, because this turned into just a universe-wide dissection, discussion, and analysis of Marvel's past, present, and hopeful future. But let us know what you thought of Werewolf by Night. Were you as... did you enjoy it as much as we did? Was there anything we missed? It definitely felt like one of those shows that was probably a lot of references that I missed, undoubtedly. So if you caught any of those, let us know. bit.ly/241mail. And
of course, if you can't help our bit, you can always find us in the comment section below. youtube.com/2for1studios, the best place to consume the content. This is episode 137. And on our next episode, to be later on in the week or next week, it will be the season overview wrap-up of She-Hulk. And yes, we will be talking about our boy Daredevil. We have that. We have Black Adam next week. Or at least it comes out next week. We have House of the Dragon. We have Rings of Power. We have Andor.
House of the Dragon. Are you caught up on House of Dragon?
Yes.
Ooh, that last episode. My favorite one yet.
Dude.
It was fantastic.
I can't wait to talk about that one, and also I'm actually kind of excited because like all these shows that I've been watching are like all coming to an end at the same time, like within like a week or two of each other.
And a lot of them have been really good. So yeah,
they have been. And Andor will go until end of November, but
But I've heard, even as of early this morning, that there's that Andor's heating up. So that's exciting. I was already in, but apparently it's getting even better. So let's go.
Yeah, we have Andor, we have Black Panther 2, and we have plenty to talk about over the next couple months as we lead into our 3rd anniversary for Podcast 2.1. Anyway, Daniel, it's a pleasure as always. I'll catch you next time. My name is Donovan Thompson.
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
And we have spoken.